Okay, everybody, welcome back to this week's episode of the Dana Buckler Show. My name is Dana, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jason Waters. Jason, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Just getting ready for Christmas, man. Doing great.
It is that time of year.
Ho, ho, ho.
We are recording the first week of December. Now, before we get started, we just want to make sure that everyone knows that we launched the first episode in our 10-part Patreon exclusive miniseries, 101 movies from the 1990s that we recommend you watch.
One of the best decades ever for cinema.
Absolutely. And so if you're listening to this, the first episode's available. There's a link in this episode's show notes for you to become a Patreon subscriber. And we've recorded part 2 already. We're going to be recording part 3 after we do this episode. So it's been a lot of fun. And
It has been, yeah.
It's been a great time talking about movies from the 90s.
Well, and just the fact that you get to actually revisit them.
Yes.
I mean, there's been a lot that I've rewatched for the first time in probably 20 years and gone, that's great. Or rewatched the first time in 20 years and gone, it didn't age very well.
Yeah, no.
But, that's a classic, but whoa.
So you're going to be gone for a week after this, or 2 weeks, or how long are you going to be gone for?
So we're going to be gone Wednesday through Wednesday. It's my wife's 40th birthday.
Awesome. Happy birthday, Sally.
Yes, happy birthday. She so whenever I get stressed out, what helps me is a road trip.
Sure.
So when I turned 40 and then again at 42, I just took out west, flew out there, drove back, or drove out there and drove back. And every single time the Grand Canyon was on my bucket list, and she said, don't you dare. She's like, you will not see that without me.
Okay.
So I've had to strategically make my routes around the Grand Canyon. So I'm super excited to see it now.
Now, when you do see the Grand Canyon, you're going to be in what state?
We'll be in Arizona.
Arizona.
So
okay.
Sedona, Arizona, which is also, and I didn't realize it, one of the certified dark cities. So I'm also a astrology buff.
Okay.
I should say astronomy buff, not astrology.
Right.
My Venus is in retrograde right now.
I can't. So,
but I've been to one other one, which is Moab. And at first I was super disappointed because it got dark and I was out at, Arches National Park and just going, man, all these clouds are starting to come up. This is BS. And then you realize when it gets a little bit darker, oh, that's the Milky Way.
Oh, wow.
And it hits and you just go, holy hell. So it's really awesome being out there when there's no light pollution and you can just see everything.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear about that. I really am. So, well, before we get into this episode where we're going to talk about some of the stuff that we've been watching lately, longtime listeners, or at least listeners that have been listening to the show over the past year, know that I just can't seem to stay out of a certain place. We're going to recall back to the Batman episode where I thought I was having a heart attack.
Yep.
And then in August,
I was like, man, he hates this movie. He's walking out.
I'm like, I'm out 10 minutes
10
in.
minutes in?
10 minutes in,
Jeez.
I'm out. Then August, I'm in there again. Something crazy. Well, I just want to quickly tell this story because
I text you on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I'm like, hey, lots of food over here. Come by, enjoy some food and some pie. And then I get a picture back of you in a hospital gown. I'm like,
correct. What's going on? All right. So this is how this all goes down. Okay. So I do dinner and a movie Tuesday of Thanksgiving.
Yep.
That week. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Great movie.
Everything goes off without a hitch. Everyone loves it. Great time. We had a blast. I go home. I go to bed around, it's around 11 o'clock. I feel great. I wake up around 3 o'clock in the morning, and the pain that I was experiencing, I thought I was having an acid reflux attack. I've had those in the past, and typically that will happen if I eat something like really fatty or fried late at night or something like that.
Right.
But so I took a Prilosec, and I was sitting up. I'm like, oh, this will go away in about an hour, and an hour later, it was only getting worse. So, I just bit the bullet and went to the emergency room, and I'm talking to the doctor. And at this point, I'm in such crippling pain that I'm telling the doctor, like, listen, like, I'm not a junkie.
That's the first thing they think. There comes the drug-seeking behavior.
I am not a junkie. There are no track marks on my arm. My lips are not burnt from a
Check his
pipe.
toes.
Okay. But you've got to help me with this pain because this is unbelievably this is unbearable.
Yeah.
And they were kind enough to give me morphine. So it was mighty morphine time.
Ooh.
And that didn't make the pain go away. It just took the edge off.
Yeah.
Like I was in so much pain. And I'm talking to the doctor. And he's like, well, when's the last time you ate something? I'm like, it was like 3:00 in the afternoon. He's like, what did you have? And I'm like, I think it was like a grilled chicken salad, you know? He's like, I don't think you're suffering from acid reflux. We're going to do an ultrasound.
Yeah.
And they do the ultrasound.
And by now they know you by name.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey, Dana.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Your usual room? No. Let me tell you something. I didn't get a room. I got a hospital gurney in the hallway.
Like a triage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I was not even priority. Okay. And they do the ultrasound and I'm feeling a little bit better. And the all of a sudden this guy comes out. He goes, hi, I'm Dr. Ferber. I'm the on-call surgeon. And I'm like, surgeon? What are you doing here?
Hello.
What how do you? What's going on, Doc? Are you sure you got the right person here? He goes, listen, I had to tell you this, but you've got gallbladder stones.
Which I didn't know was a
That
thing.
was a thing.
I've heard of kidney stones.
Yeah, I was like, really? What? So he goes, yeah, and one of them's really big. And I was like, you've seen this before? He goes, this one's, pretty. I'm like, no, calm me down. Like, no, you're supposed to be a
She's
doctor.
getting ready to blow.
You're a doctor. You've seen everything. Don't be like, I've never seen this before. And so he goes, but by this point they had given me some type of anti-inflammatory and the swelling and the pain and everything had gone away and I was feeling back to normal.
Yeah.
So he says, listen, here's the bottom line. Like, there's nothing we can do. You're going to have to get your gallbladder removed. It's going to have to come out. And I'm just like, so what does that mean for the rest of my life? And he goes, that's pretty common procedure. I'm like, okay, doc, just give it to me straight.
Give it to me
Okay.
straight.
All right.
Am I going to make it?
Am I Triscuits and water for the rest of my life? And he goes, no, you'll be fine. You stay away from some fatty food. You'll be fine. He goes, but here's the deal. It's the day before Thanksgiving. The hospital staff is running at, minimal staff because of the holidays. We are a trauma hospital. We only have 2 surgical teams. If I admit you could be here for 2 or 3 days waiting to have the surgery. Obviously, if you have a flare-up, we'll treat that and make sure you're comfortable. He goes, well, what I'm thinking is because you appear to be feeling better, I think I'm going to send you home and schedule you for outpatient surgery on Monday, after the holiday weekend.
Yeah.
Come in at like 6:00 in the morning, and if everything goes well, you'll go home that evening. I'm like, so it's 1 day outpatient surgery. He goes, I just want to do one more test. just want to know what I'm dealing with. We're going to do a more thorough imaging test. I just want to know what we're dealing with here. I said, okay. So they take me into this room, and it looked like a smaller version of a CAT scan machine. But he's like, yeah, have a seat, lay down. Do you have to go to the bathroom? I'm like, no, I'm good. He's like, all right, because you're going to be here for about an hour and a half.
Holy.
That's how long the imaging test goes on.
You just sit still for an hour?
I had to lay down, and they gave me a strap to put my arms through so I could rest them on my side.
No way.
And they're like, we're going to pump a radioactive dye into your body. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, you could turn me into the Hulk.
Knowing my luck, 3 seconds into that, I'd be like, I got to scratch my balls.
He's like, sign this consent form.
Oh,
like,
my
consent form, nuclear. And there's like nuclear radiation signs on the door. I'm like, what is going on? So I'm laying there, by the way, still giving me the morphine. So I'm just in la la land. Like in my mind, like I'm fishing off the Golden Gate Bridge. Like I'm just talking to him like the fish are really biting. He's like, what? I'm like, what? And so they do the imaging test. They wheel me back to my gurney, and a nurse comes up to me and says, with a tray of food, and says, the doctor wants you to eat this. Some of this is a little higher in fat. We want to see if this is going to trigger a reaction from your gallbladder. So I'm starving. So I eat the food, and they said if there's no reaction, we're going to feel more comfortable about sending you home.
Right.
If there is a reaction, relax. You're in the hospital. We'll take care of it.
Yeah.
So I eat the food. Nothing happens. I feel great. All right. I'm thinking I'm going home in like an hour. I'm texting work and like, hey, I'll probably be about an hour late, but I'll be there. And no, like 20 minutes later, this guy comes up and he's like, Mr. Buckler, we got a room for you upstairs. I'm like,
No, I'm going home.
I thought, is that like the room upstairs? Is that like the discharge room where you do the paperwork?
Appointment planning?
Yeah. And so he goes, no, you're being admitted. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So I text work, not going to make it tonight. And they wheel me up to a room, and it's a busy hospital. I don't have my own room. All right. They wheel me in. There's an old man, probably in his 70s, laying on a bed. They wheel me past him. They draw the curtain divider, and I'm just like next to the window, and I feel fine.
Right.
Okay.
That's got to be the worst part. You're like, dude, just let me go.
So I'm just sitting on the hospital bed, and the old man, his daughter was there, granddaughter was there. They're so happy to have somebody in the room to break up the monotony. His name was Mr. Leonard, and he just starts talking to me. He's like, how you doing over there, young man? I said, I'm good. He's like, what are you in for? And I'm like, what am I in for?
I shoved a bunch of shit in my anus.
I'm like, am I even allowed to talk to you about what I'm in here? So like HIPAA laws or something like that. So I just, I said, yeah, he's an old man. Just, I said, I'm having some issues with my gallbladder. He goes, oh, you don't need that. I had mine taken out 30 years ago. I've been just fine. I said, you're just fine. He's like, well,
why are you here?
I've been here in this room for 24 days. And I'm like, 24 days? I didn't ask him. I never asked him why he was there.
I would have been dying to know, like, what's going on, bro?
But he says to me, he goes, but it doesn't matter because I'm leaving in an hour. And I'm like, oh, good for you, Mr. Leonard. You're leaving in an hour. And the granddaughter's like, oh, yeah. Granddad's going to be home for Thanksgiving. We're going to feed him good. And I'm like, oh, well, that's awesome. And they're like, so what do you do, Mr. Dana? And I'm like, run a restaurant. Oh, what restaurant? I'm just making small chat.
Yeah.
10 minutes later, nurse walks in, comes up to me and says, all right, Dana, here's the deal. The nuclear imaging scan revealed a gallbladder stone 1 inch wide. You are not going to make it
till
Monday.
That's like the tip of a finger.
I know. He says, you are not going to make it till Monday.
Ooh.
So we are going to do the surgery tonight because it has to go. It has to come out. And she's going like through this checklist and she goes, okay, are you allergic to any medications? I'm like, no, not that I know of, blah, blah, blah. When's the last time you ate food? I'm like, you guys
just gave me a bunch of stuff.
You gave me food an hour ago. And she goes, okay, well, we're not doing the surgery tonight. And I'm like, oh,
but didn't you just say that I need it right now?
I'm like, and she goes, we'll do it. We're going to schedule it for 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, which is Thanksgiving Day. Okay.
American Thanksgiving
for our international listeners.
That's right.
It's a big, big holiday here.
Yeah.
It's the fourth Thursday in November. It's a big, big deal here.
Yes.
So I'm just sitting there. I've been in the room for about a half an hour. Mr. Leonard's talking to me some more, and he's just going on about can't wait to get out. The nurse comes up and walks in. She goes, Mr. Leonard, now remind you, there's a dividing curtain, okay? So I can't see the nurse. I can only hear her. She doesn't see me.
Yeah.
She goes, Mr. Leonard, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but you're going to be in here for another 7 days. You just tested positive for COVID. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Someone get me out of here.
And he goes, what? But I feel fine. And I'm like,
mask.
That's what I was like. I was like, hi. I'm sorry to interrupt the conversation, Mr. Leonard. I'm back here. Can I have a mask, please?
Put a pillowcase over my head.
Can somebody please bring me a mask? And no sooner like a nurse comes in, hands me a mask, and I'm just like, so I put a mask on. And I'm like, I don't want to be in here anymore. I don't want to be. This is what's happening. I'm in here for. If you get COVID, they keep you for 7 days in here. Like, get the fuck out of here. So the nurses now they're coming in full PPE gear, like just personal protective gear, like the whole like the face shields, the masks, the gloves, the gowns, the whole nine. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. The nurse comes in and I can only see her eyes. Everything else is covered. And she's like smiling with her eyes. She goes, good news, Dana. You're getting your own room. I'm like, okay. She's like, let's get you out of here.
Please.
So they wheel me to another floor. They put me in a room and they put all these COVID precaution signs on my door. This patient has been exposed to COVID. And I'm like, oh.
For like 10 minutes.
Now the nurses are all coming in. Like, remember E.T. when he's like in the little room that are all coming in space suits? That's how that I'm feeling like I'm patient zero now. I'm E.T. And they're coming in, everyone's masked up, and then the surgical doctors come in, not wearing a mask at all. They're there 24 hours a day. They're just at this point.
Like,
I think they're just like, fuck it, who cares?
I've had 9 boosters. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. So they just start talking to me, and they go through the surgical consent form. All right. So I had minor surgery when I was like 13 years old, and this is 30 something years ago, and I'm sure the surgical consent form was given to my parents back then. But they're going through, all right, so this is, with this type of operation, there's a risk of infection here, there's a risk of that. And he goes, and there's a very slim possibility of death. And I'm like, what? And he goes, well,
It's lurking around every corner.
It's a real possibility. It's very slim, but it has been known to happen. And I just looked at it and I said, Doc, give it to me straight. I want to know right now, this procedure you're going to do on me, you've done this hundreds, if not thousands of times, right? He goes, oh, it's my bread and butter. I do it all the time. Literally do it every day. I've done it so many times I can't even keep track
That's
anymore.
used car salesman.
And I'm like, I'm ready to sign.
Oh,
so
you remind me to tell you my story.
yeah.
After this.
So they said, listen, again, trauma hospital, you're number one on the docket for first surgery in the morning. Obviously, if we get, a patient in here that's trauma alerted in here, we'll have to, take care of them first. But so 4:00 in the morning, nurse wakes me up and says, we have to lock up your valuables because you're going to be out of your room. I'm like, well, that's the fact that you have to lock
because
up
we get raided every day
like,
at 5 a.m.
I'm like, something tells me that something happened for them to have to put that procedure in place.
Just like when you have to tell people this door slides, it doesn't push.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a reason for that.
So, and I'm like, okay, well, and I'm like half asleep, and I'm like, okay, valuables, okay. So I give her my wallet, my car keys. She's like, I need your phone too, and I'm like, okay, and I give her the phone, and they lock it up. And again, if everything goes according to plan, I am having surgery in a few hours. But if something happens, I could be there for a couple of days, and they've just taken my phone away from me. And I don't know anyone's phone number anymore.
Like, no, I don't have a phone.
There's a phone in the room, but I don't know anyone's phone number. Literally don't know anyone.
Is there even 411 anymore?
I don't know. I mean, like, is there a Yellow Pages I can borrow for a moment? So that's got me all stressed out now. I'm like, how do I tell anybody? I can't even text my parents and be like, hey, so this is happening. And 7:00 in the morning, this lady comes up and she's like, all right, Mr. Buckler, we're taking you to pre-op. And they take me down to this room. It's like in the bowels of the hospital. They wheel me in and there's like a sign. It says today's surgery. And literally it's only my name.
It's like
number one.
Marquee.
Yeah. And there's two ladies and they come over and I've got like a hospital gown on and like, all right, now, do you have anything on under that hospital gown? I'm like, no. They're like, all right, good, because we'd cut it off if you did. And I'm like, okay, all right, no, I got you. And they put these wraps around my shins, like around my leg muscles, around my calf muscles, and they had these hoses on them, and they're like going to inflate them with air, and they're going to help prevent blood clotting.
Oh yeah, like a flight suit.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the closest I'll ever come to being Maverick. So I got to wear half a G suit.
That's cool.
And so they put like the, I call it like the hairnet thing on me. Like I look like Randall in Clerks 3, right? Literally I'm having this moment and I meet with the anesthesiologist. She comes in and she's like, all right, so we're going to do this and this. And when you go under, we're going to have a breathing tube in you, but you won't know it because it'll be out before you wake up and blah, blah, blah. And she goes, I think right now I'm going to give you something for anxiety. And I'm like, oh, I'm not anxious. She goes, you're not nervous? I said, no, I totally trust medicine in 2022. I said,
should I be?
I said, unless this is your first day. And she goes, no, I've been doing this for 20 years. I said, no, I'm good. I'm good. All right, well, sign this form. All right.
I got to say, if anyone ever offers you drugs, it's like Ghostbusters. Anyone asks you for your God, you say yes. Anybody offers you drugs? Yes.
So then then they said, we're going to introduce you to the nurse anesthetist. Okay. We call her the bartender because she's about to give you a cocktail that you are going to love. And I remember at this point, like, cause I already have an IV in, they put an IV in, they wheel me into the operating room and it's got those big operating lights and they've got these television monitors in there because it's laparoscopic surgery where they go in with a camera and a light and everything. Yeah. And at this point, the juice is starting to kick in, right? And I'm just like, you guys are great. You know what? Thank you for what you do. And I was like, it's Thanksgiving. I've got a lot to be thankful for. And I was out. I was out. So I woke up around 11 o'clock in the morning. I mean, out of it. And there's a nurse going, how you feeling? I'm like, I don't even know where I am right now. And they wheel me up to my room. And I'm in a lot of pain in my stomach where they actually took the gallbladder out. And, a couple hours later, I have to go to the bathroom. All right. But I got to call a nurse to help me get out of
number one or number two?
Number one. I got
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I have to pee. All right. So I get up and she helps me in there. And this is when I say a handicapped accessible bathroom on steroids. Yeah. All right. There is handles everywhere in this room. It looks like something out of
Fall
American
protection.
Ninja Warrior. Okay, like there's so much fall protection going on there. So I'm holding on to this, like holding on to like gymnastic rings in there, and so she's like, "I'll give you a minute. Are you good?" So I go to the bathroom. All right, and then obviously something happens that I hit the nurse call button,
Uh-oh.
and she comes back. She's like, "What's wrong?" I said, "Something's wrong. Something's really, really wrong." And she goes, "What?" I said, "It stings when I pee." And she goes, and
Y'all
that-
gave me gonorrhea.
I said, "That didn't happen. That wasn't happening pre-op. It stings. What else is going on?" She goes, "Oh, that's because you had a catheter in." I'm like, oh my God, which is my biggest fear in the world. Okay. I was out, so I didn't know it. She goes, "It'll be fine. Couple more peas. I'm like, "Oh my God, couple more peas."
That's a clear violation.
yeah. I'm like, that wasn't in the consent form.
I don't remember reading that.
You told me the
That's
breathing
my pee-pee.
too.
That's not your pee-pee.
So then I just kind of started to get back to my faculties, and around 8:00 that night, they're like, "You feel like you're ready to go home?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I called a friend of mine, and she came and picked me up, and I went home, and
Holy hell.
yeah, I didn't do anything that Friday. I didn't do anything that Saturday. I eventually went back to work on Wednesday, which was dinner and a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Pulp Fiction, if I remember correctly. Yep. And that was my first night working, and I was out of gas by the end
You
of that
looked a little
night.
tired. Yep.
I was definitely tired. So, Jason, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. I again made way too much food and threw away way too many leftovers. But no, I was going to say my only big surgical experience was, I should say my only difficult surgical experience was a vasectomy.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just going to put this out there as a PSA for anyone considering a vasectomy. If you have the option to be asleep, take it.
Take it.
I went to University of Florida before it was whatever it is now, UF Shands or whatever. And
Wait, now, when you say you went to University of Florida, you went to
whatever the Shands
the college? So you had the
No,
you had the
it
pre-med
wasn't like
students?
the barber school.
the barber school. Because you can go to like the places where they teach massages and get like a massage for $20 or a haircut for $6. So I don't know what they've got going on there.
It wasn't the guy on the billboard. It's like vasectomy, $60.
I like going when I go down the interstate and see we can reverse a vasectomy. I'm like, no, I don't even want to know how you do that.
Snip, snap, snip, snap. So I did the research. I'm like, I'm going to find a great urologist, get it done. And they did to me. So they just give you a local down there. And the guy comes in, the same guy I've dealt with for like 3 visits now. And he's like, "Are you ready for this?" I'm like, "I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be. So let's get going." He's like, "All right, let's go." He's like, "So this is Lauren. She's a student here, and she's going to be the one doing your vasectomy. Is that okay?" I'm like,
I was right.
It's like, is it? I'm like, I don't know. Is it okay? Like, can I say no? He's like, "Well, we're a teaching hospital, so I'm going to be here the entire time. I'm going to be making sure that everything's fine." Everything was not fine.
Oh no. Okay. Oh. Geez.
I mean, it worked.
I'm just picturing,
Probably due to damage,
I'm
but
picturing there's something about Mary. We gotta bleed her.
but yeah, 3 days later when they order something called a scrotum Doppler. Yeah.
Okay.
Not great. So
Okay.
for anyone considering it, absolutely do it. Absolutely insist the doctor that you pick does
it.
the surgery.
All right. To anyone that works in the medical field, all right, anyone that works in nursing, anyone that's listening that's a doctor, especially ones that work in emergency room settings, my hat is off to you. I witnessed and saw some really ugly behavior from some of the people that were coming in there to be treated, and it really, really upset me. Like I was just like, and I understand people can be in pain and they're not in their right mind, but the amount of verbal abuse that I witnessed and heard, like it was staggering. And
That's terrible.
And I just want to say, as somebody who went in there, I won't even say I go out of my way to be nice to people. That's my nature. Like I am genuinely nice to people. I try to be as much as possible. Something I must have struck a positive chord with them, because when I was leaving, all the nurses on that floor came by one to say goodbye.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Wheeled me out took me out my wheelchair. They're all walking with me and high-fiving me and everything. And I'm like, now make sure you listen to the podcast. And one of them's like, don't go. You can't go.
You're the only one.
The only one. Like, I noticed that every time, like, the nurses were doing their rounds, they'd come in and just start shooting the shit with me for like 10, 15 minutes. All right, so where are you from, Dana? Like, just like, so it didn't go unnoticed how kind everyone, from the custodian to the person that brought me food to all the nurses, the RNs, the docs, everybody was incredibly nice and made the experience one that I was never, I never needed something for anxiety.
Yeah. I will say, I haven't not spent a whole lot of time in hospitals, mainly the 3 times my kids were born, but it's a calling. I mean, like being a teacher, because what you've got to put up with, it's got to be in your soul to do that. Yeah. Because I know there's no way I could. I don't have the patience or the wherewithal to deal with what they deal with.
I mean, it's something else. So if you're listening and you work in the medical field in any capacity, thank you for what you do.
Absolutely.
There are people out there that genuinely appreciate what you're doing. So, well, we should talk about what we've been watching lately. That's the whole purpose of this episode, is it just a little catch up here. Obviously, you saw some more things than I did, because I've been kind of down for the count for the past few weeks. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Just tell me about a few of the things you've seen, and what you're going to recommend. Maybe what you can say. Basically tell me, see it in the theater, wait for streaming, or skip it. So
I think one of the best ones I've seen recently that I think you enjoyed as well was Black Adam.
Okay. So let's start.
Shall we start there?
Let's start with Black Adam. Now, you saw this. If I'm wrong, you saw this twice in the theater.
Twice.
So you gave Dwayne money twice. Okay.
Yeah, I did.
So, on your recommendation, because you took pictures in the theater, on your recommendation, I plopped down, what was it, $20 to rent I would have been better off going to see it in the theater.
You would have been better off.
I would have saved $8.
And you could have gotten popcorn for that price.
I could have gotten popcorn. Okay. This is not, listen, I'm trying to turn over a new leaf. It's about to be 2023.
You have to deal with the fact that superhero movies are going to be here. Some of them are going to be good. Some of them are going to be bad. Some of them are going to fall somewhere in the middle.
I made it. Oh my God. I made it like 7 minutes into this. I was like, oh God, this is, I mean, like you're not even trying. The whole thing is just animated. It's a pure animated movie. It's just animated.
It's a comic book movie.
And I get it. And I was just like, you know what? But for the listeners who haven't seen it, I can't give it a recommend or not recommend. All I can tell you is I made it 7-8 minutes into the film, and I'm like, you can keep the $20. It's like Ghostbusters. You can keep the $5. I've had it.
So here's what I'll say about Black Adam. I was expecting it to be The Rock or Dwayne Johnson just over the top, and it wasn't. He was more of a mellow role. I did not see the ending coming, which was surprising. I knew absolutely nothing about the series, the movie, any of that. So I appreciated the story of it. You are 100% correct. The plot is nonsensical. It is 90% of the time something's blowing up. Someone is making a speech. Someone's trying to make a funny point. They were trying to make a Marvel movie with this.
Right. So,
but in the market right now for movies, there is very little to see out there.
Right. And then, of course, I'm not naive to the end credit sequence that everyone was talking about. Everybody's like, listen, here's all. Okay. If I can just say something about the Phase 4 Marvel movies. All right. Do you know how many times I heard, it was good, but wait till that end credit sequence.
Wait till you see what's coming next.
I'm like
Howard the Duck.
I mean, that'd be like you buy a ticket to see your favorite band, and you have 3 bands you've never heard of play for 4 hours, and then your favorite band comes out and plays one song, and we're done.
Yeah.
That's
not even a song, like just
they
the
play
chorus.
the chorus of Bohemian Rhapsody,
Yeah.
and we're done.
Yeah.
Like that to me, that's like that logic makes no sense to me.
Yeah. So I will say,
but if I could,
I'm sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
So 7 minutes. So I did hit the fast forward icon to the end credits because I wanted to see that sequence, and I'm like, oh, that's 11 seconds long.
Yeah, it was nothing.
That's like, what are we talking about?
And you could find that on YouTube.
Yeah, I was like, this is like, I'm like, okay, all right. If I could say one more thing.
I got that text that night, and you're just like, well, asshole.
I'm like, I'm just going to be honest here. I'm going to be real for a second. Everybody's going like crazy, like Henry Cavill, Superman, blah, blah, blah. Like, people hated Man of Steel. People hated Batman v Superman. People hated the Justice League.
Yep.
I'm like, wait, I don't get it. I'm like, hold on a second. Like, nobody likes the DC movies.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm going to get some tweets
Batman,
now.
Yeah.
Nobody likes the DCEU movies.
Yes.
All right. They've all been kind of garbage.
Well, yeah. As long as it was, I actually did not. I took a different stance on the Zack Snyder cut that's on HBO.
Sure.
I didn't hate it. I liked it better than what was produced. But at 3.5 hours long, there's going to be something you like in there.
Well, I started it.
It's like a buffet.
I started it. But if you're looking for a review of Zack Snyder's Justice League, the extended cut that came out on HBO Max, there's actually one on this podcast feed that my buddy Mike Scott, who used to do a lot of shows with me, he did it. He brought a couple people on that are also really good podcasters, and they did a really like 2-hour long discussion on the movie.
Oh, wow.
So it's definitely.
I mean, it would probably need a 2-hour long discussion on it.
Oh
because,
yeah, it wasn't for me. I tried to watch it. I fired it up. I got like 10 minutes into it. I'm like,
you in this 10 minutes.
Like, I'm just like, I mean, it might have been different if I had gone to see it in the theater or if I had actually paid for it, but it was on HBO Max, which I was a subscriber at the time.
So next time, turn it on, pop some morphine, take the edge off, and then just lay into it.
Exactly. So, all right. So I want to talk about a movie that I saw a few weeks ago, the new Martin McDonagh film, The Banshees of Inisherin.
I'm so excited to see
Brendan
that.
Gleeson, Colin Farrell. For those not familiar, Martin McDonagh directed movies like Seven Psychopaths, In Bruges, Three Billboards Outside Ebbings, Missouri. So he is he's a filmmaker that gets to put his vision from start to finish on screen. And I'm not going to get into spoilers for this movie because it was in a very limited release. I'm sure at some point it's going to hit the VOD market. It was limited release, so it could qualify for the Academy Awards and award seasons. But I'm going to just tell you how this breaks down, okay? And Eamon, I'm sure you're listening, so I just want to basically say is when the movie takes place in 1920s Ireland, an island off the coast of the mainland of Ireland. And if you've seen the trailers, it's basically, Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson have been lifelong friends. And then one day Brendan Gleeson is just like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. And the entire movie is Colin Farrell trying to figure out why this friendship has ended. And it's funny. It's very dark. It has very.
I know the trailer makes it look fantastic.
It's a dark comedy, and it's very R-rated in some parts, and it's a very Irish movie. All right, like there is a ton of Irish slang that I just didn't understand.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is when the movie was over, I was saying to myself, I don't know what it is about this film, but I'm just going to be honest, like. I don't understand what Martin McDonagh was going for. Performances were, as you would expect, amazing. It's shot on location. It's beautiful. Cinematography is beautiful, filled with rich and interesting characters throughout. There's not a wasted character in this movie. But I honestly didn't understand what he was trying to say about the movie.
Mulholland Falls.
There's a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
And when it's over, I'm just like, huh. And I saw it in a packed movie theater in Sarasota, Florida, the independent theater called the Burns Court Cinema. And it was packed, and everyone just kind of quietly got up and just kind of shuffled out of the theater. And I got outside, and I didn't know anybody because I was down visiting. And I was just like, huh.
What the heck was that?
What? I saw this theater, and I was just like, I don't get it. And so I had to reach out to my friend Eamon, who's actually been on the podcast before. He lives in Dublin, Ireland. And he'd seen it and he had recommended
Oh,
it to
yeah.
me. He was strongly recommended to me, and apparently it's being very well received in Ireland. And I said, listen, man, I'm just going to be completely honest. Like, I don't get it. And he explained to me, and this is not a spoiler, so I'm going to explain it I'm going to tell
It's
you.
a PSA.
It's
Another
a PSA
PSA.
for us Americans, because he said, how do you think this is going to play in America? And I'm like, well, I don't know. But once he explained the metaphor of the movie, like the light bulb went off.
Right.
He goes, no, the entire thing is a metaphor for the Irish Civil War in the 1920s. And then he explained which each character represents a different facet of it.
Right.
And when he explained it to me, it was like, oh, this movie's absolutely brilliant. And I can't wait to watch it again. So I will say this, like, go into this movie with a rudimentary understanding of the Irish Civil War, and I think you're really, really going to like the film. So it's a strong recommendation for me, even though I left the theater ultimately confused the first time I watched it.
No, it's definitely been on my list of films to watch. And it's after seeing those two in Bruges.
Yeah.
I mean, that has got to be one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah. But how long was it?
It was 2 hours.
A good 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe an hour 47, something like that. It did. Let me tell you something. I was never bored.
Yeah.
The runtime, I didn't feel the runtime, so I'd have to look it up again. But maybe 2 hours.
Kept it going. Okay.
Yeah. No, it was just there's so many things that just start to happen. Like there's what I call an escalation. There's an inciting incident, and then there's an escalating, and it just keeps going. And there's parts of the film where you're like, did that just happen? And like there was audible gasps in the audience during sometimes. Like people were just like, "Oh my god," because it gets pretty fucking intense in some parts.
Well, so here's one of my issues in a I guess you can call Ocala a secondary market. We do not get a whole lot of the independent films here.
We used to, and sadly, like I remember seeing Manchester by the Sea.
Yes.
I was the only one in there.
Yep.
Like there was not an audience. There's not just, people aren't coming to the movies.
No. And I got so excited because I was looking up, what to see last weekend, and I looked at it. I'm like, oh, that's there. Yes. Dana's got a good recommendation. Now I know what I'm going into. And turns out it was for a Gainesville theater.
Which for our audience is about a minimum 45-minute drive if the traffic's good.
Yeah. So, overall, that's been my biggest issue with being in that secondary market is just like, come on, I know right now Wakanda Forever, you're playing that and no one's showing up. I went to go see The Fabelmans. I was one of two people in the theater. So you could show the other ones and no one's going to show up either.
Well, that's a good segue because I actually want to ask you about both of those movies because one I'm actually really looking forward to seeing, and the other one is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Yes.
So
I don't know if I can say what I felt about Wakanda Forever or what I texted you about Wakanda Forever.
Right. Well, let me ask you this: when you saw it, was it a packed movie theater?
Somewhat. So actually, I've driven through there a couple times over the last couple weeks, and I've seen a good 20, 30 cars out there. You don't have to see it in the theaters. Especially you.
Not to worry.
You don't have to pay $19.99 for it.
No. I'll wait for the old Disney Plus release.
Really, the only reason I went to go see it was to see how they dealt with Chadwick Boseman's death.
Absolutely. And I want to set the record straight here. I quietly watched Black Panther, the first one. For the first time.
I did not. I liked it. It
was the first time last week. Like just to show, like it was never a movie that again, like I'm not the audience for Marvel movies.
Yeah.
I'm disillusioned with the fact that studios won't take a chance on anything other than comic book films. But that's an argument that I'm turning over a new leaf. But that being said, I wanted to see Black Panther. I put it on, and I got to tell you, look, I don't hate Marvel movies. I don't hate them. I'm not happy with what the repercussions or the fallout of Marvel films. But that was a pretty damn good movie. That first Black Panther film. I was actually I'm gonna put it this way. I was fully engaged the entire time, and I can't say that about every Marvel film.
Yeah.
I will say, if anyone's wondering, my favorite Marvel movie, all right, this is a big one, is Captain America Civil War.
Yep.
So,
I think if you were to search, of the best Marvel movies, that is definitely probably in the top 3 of everyone's.
that is the most entertaining one from start to finish for me. And then I would say second would be Infinity War. I actually really dug that film as well.
Wait, the first
one. The first one, yeah. Endgame was way too long. Way too long.
Hurry up, Avengers.
I was like, wait a second. Anyway,
yeah.
I love you 3,000. Like 3,000 minutes, is that how long this movie is? So, but I'm sorry, I cut you off when we were talking about Wakanda Forever. So I will watch it. I'm just not going to run it in the theater.
So when the first day it came out, the reviews were horrible.
Really? Okay.
The first day it was like, oh, this is, without the main character, this is not the Marvel movie we want. And I was like, oh, okay, they're going to just keep tearing this thing down. Sure. I got on there like 3 days later because I went and saw it on, I think, a Tuesday. And the Rotten Tomatoes and the audience score was like 97.
Wow.
I'm like, what? You guys turned that quickly? Like all of the initial reviews went that bad? I wasn't a big fan.
Do you think there's any fuckery going on with those reviews?
You think?
Yeah.
You're paying some people
Is it possible to manipulate reviews on Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah.
I think it is. But anyway, I digress. I've heard mostly positive about
it's
the
so
movie,
funny because you go on there and there's like, all these positive reviews in Russian and Spanish and Turkish. And it's like, it's tough to know who to believe anymore. However, I wasn't a fan.
Yeah.
Is it worth seeing? Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. It seems to me the entire Phase 4 Marvel movies could be best described as interesting in the beginning, muddy in the middle, and then a ridiculous, over-the-top third act that's just the typical Marvel giant action set piece. Would that be a good way to describe?
And a setup to whatever they're hawking next.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're following the same formula they've always done. And, I mean, I need to see overall what Wakanda Forever has done. I'm sure it's grossed $500 million
Well,
by
it's
now.
done a lot better than Black Adam. Black Adam as of this recording is 386 worldwide.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, like that's, and I don't care how you try to spin that.
Wow.
They're like, Black Adam had the 15th greatest third week ever. Like
There's somebody's trying to pull that.
There's no way to spin that. Like it's not like Wakanda Forever has done exponentially better.
Yeah.
And let's just be honest, like, from my observations, Marvel is the way more popular franchise than what DC's doing.
Yeah.
DC's just DC doesn't have a Kevin Feige,
Yeah.
who's overseen the entire thing from start to finish. I mean, what is it, like 30 Marvel movies?
Oh, there's got to be. Plus the series on Disney Plus.
Yeah,
I mean, right now Black Panther is almost 400 million domestic.
That's pretty good.
730 worldwide.
That's really good, actually. 400 domestic, that's pretty good.
Yep.
So, all right. So, The Fabelmans, a movie I have not seen yet. It is a semi-autobiographical retelling of Steven Spielberg's childhood, which I'm very familiar with the story. I've watched numerous documentaries and I've read the biography on Spielberg. So, I mean, I've been wanting to see it. The 2.5 hour runtime concerns me a little bit, but tell me about your experiences seeing The Fabelmans.
So I'll say this. We actually talked about this on, I think, our mid-year review on this was one of the ones I was looking forward to. I will say, and I hate to say it, this is not one to see in the theaters.
Okay.
Maybe I was just a little bit naive, but I thought this was going to be a much happier movie than it was.
Oh, okay.
I was not prepared at all for the actual story of it. So it kind of took me aback. And I remember it was about halfway through. I'm going, this is a pretty troubled childhood. Like I was expecting it to be, when you say semi-autobiographical about Steven Spielberg, I wanted to see something that was, you see the spark in him and it's about his journey, but it was more about his family and his interactions with his family. And it was very heartfelt. It was very heartwarming at times. But it was not a overall happy story.
Interesting.
It is definitely worth seeing.
That is really interesting. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I've literally seen everything he's done.
Yeah,
everything from his first short film, Amblin. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it all. That being said, for reasons we talked about at the beginning of this episode, I just never got a chance to go to the theater. And by my calculations, it's not even going to be in the theater.
It's probably gone by now. Yeah.
Because it did $8 million over the 4-day holiday weekend. Like that's, I mean, you know, that's tough because, you know, here we are. We're like, we want something other than Marvel movies in the theater. And then when they do
Spielberg gives it to you, and it's like, nah.
No, we don't want that.
Black Adam's out.
Black Adam. So what else do you have on your list?
I have one. So I'll talk about one other one that was on my really looking forward to, which was 3,000 Years of Longing.
Okay, so that's the new George Miller movie. For those who don't know, George Miller obviously famously directed the Mad Max movies. Babe, Pig in the City, Happy Feet. Yeah.
The best and the worst of civilization.
Death Becomes Her. That's a good movie.
I love that movie.
Yeah. So he's the thing about George Miller is you can't peg him as one type of director.
No.
He's very, very eclectic. And that's a compliment. I mean, I like most of his movies. But I will say this. Nothing about the trailer for 3,000 Years of Longing appealed to me. Nothing about it looked like, it didn't even look like something I was going to be into. So
what I was excited about. Because I was like, okay, well, we've got Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton, some of the best actors out there who are going to replay the djinn, you know, a genie in the bottle is what the premise is. She finds a genie in a bottle, and it's his retelling of what happened to him over the last 3,000 years, and you know going through what her 3 wishes are. And she's someone who's an expert on the djinn and genies, or whatever you want to call them. So I expected to not see a whole lot in that trailer, that they were just going to expand on everything in the movie. It was not that good. So it was a disappointment for me. Visually, there was a lot there. There was a lot of CGI. It was a good story. If it ever comes on a free service and you've got an opportunity, it's a good story.
Okay.
It's not a great movie.
Okay.
But
well, right now he's currently in production with a Mad Max prequel. So
yes,
we'll
Furiosa.
We'll see. I'm interested.
Yeah,
I'm definitely interested in that. Segue into television just for a moment. So I am, like most of America, I am watching season 5 of Yellowstone right now. A melodrama, to say the least. I caught the bug. I caught the fever of Yellowstone, the first few seasons.
Okay, because last time we talked, I didn't think you'd seen any of it.
So I
still haven't seen it.
I have watched all of it, including the episode that aired last night.
Wow.
And
you're a fan.
It's becoming a really interesting story, and it's the modern day Dallas.
Yes.
Okay. But I will say I'm starting to see some cracks in the foundation, and what I will say, like, when you look at a show like Breaking Bad, you look at a show like Better Call Saul, Mad Men, hi AMC. I'm plugging everything you guys are doing, but not The Walking Dead. But the point I'm trying to go with is certain showrunners know when it's time to end.
Yes,
time to end. And I can tell you, watching this season of Yellowstone, you're on the 5th season. It could be time to wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a moneymaker, and Taylor Sheridan, the creator, has inked this ridiculous production deal with Paramount.
Oh, really?
So he's doing Yellowstone 1883. He's got another Yellowstone show with Helen Mirren and Harrison Ford. And I want to mention that he did a show called Mayor of Kingstown with Jeremy Renner, which is super, super heavy. All of these shows are super heavy. And along comes a new series by Taylor Sheridan called Tulsa King, starring Sylvester Stallone.
I have not seen that.
Basic premise of this movie is Sylvester Stallone plays a mafia capo who has just served 25 years in prison and kept his mouth shut. So he didn't rat on his family. He gets out of prison. This is all in the first 10 minutes of the first episode. He gets out of prison. He goes, has a sit down with the mafia bosses and all this stuff. And he wants, where's my piece of the action? I just did 25 years for you guys. And they immediately sent him to Tulsa, Oklahoma to set up shop. And he gets there and he has nothing. And it's interesting because within the first episode, he's got a piece of a marijuana dispensary. He's hired a driver, and each episode's only like 42 minutes long. I'm enjoying the show because there is levity to it.
Okay.
Unlike
Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, no, it's and
Okay.
What's interesting is from what I've been reading is he's not really happy with the way the show has turned out, and it doesn't look like he wants to do a second season of this.
No
So
way.
I'm very curious, but
Huh.
I'm going to describe the show as kind of fun. Like it's not taking itself too serious.
What platform is that on?
So it's actually going to air on Paramount Plus.
Okay, it's on Paramount too.
Paramount Plus. So I would tell you that if you're looking for something that's not as heavy, but from Taylor Sheridan, that's not as heavy as Yellowstone, Mayor of Kingstown, the Yellowstone, prequels, 1883. Those are all super heavy
Yeah.
shows. This one's a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? Like there's a little bit more humor to it. It's
levity to it.
Levity. That's perfect.
Yeah.
There's definitely a little bit more levity to it. And Stallone's good. I mean, he's 75, 76 years old. He looks great.
Recently divorced.
Recently divorced.
Or did they get back together? I can't remember.
Yeah, maybe they get back together.
I can't follow
He's in a bitter rivalry with the producers of Rocky.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like he is doing. Yeah. Did you see the trailer for Creed 3?
Yeah.
A movie I could not give a fuck about. I'm sorry.
I actually like the Creed series.
I love Creed. I'm a big champion of Creed 2.
yeah.
Creed 2 is the spiritual sequel to Rocky 4.
Yeah.
But the secret sauce to Creed and Creed 2 is Sylvester Stallone. It's part of the Rocky saga. Creed 3, Stallone has zero involvement in this movie. He's not even going to be in it. And as much as I like Michael B. Jordan, and I think he does a great job as Adonis Creed, and I've seen both Creed movies in the theater, the trailer for Creed 3 just looks like, oh, so we're just bringing another bad guy up, a bully from your past? I'm like, I don't know.
Well, once it's what happened in the original. Once Mick's gone.
Yeah. So, did you see the Rocky recut of Rocky 4?
No.
Rocky versus Drago?
But I remember you telling me about it.
You got to find. I think it's on Hulu. I think you got to rewatch that, man. It's
Yeah.
really interesting. The last 30 minutes are pretty much the same, but the first hour is a completely different movie.
Yeah.
So there's no robot in it.
Aw.
The robot is completely cut out.
I'm going to miss it then.
So Tulsa King's definitely one that I would recommend. So, you got anything else on your list?
I've got a couple. So on Netflix, the one I have not watched yet, but I'm eager to, is Wednesday.
Okay.
Have you heard of that?
Well, okay. So funny you say that because I was at work a couple days ago. I just came back to work after getting out of the hospital, and one of my coworkers is like, "So have you watched Wednesday yet?" And I'm like, "No." I said, "Why would I want to?" I mean, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
He goes, "It's Tim Burton." I went, "What?" I said, "This is not Tim Burton's involved in it." And I pull up IMDb. I'm like, "Oh, wait a second. These episodes are directed by Tim Burton." I'm like, so I've added it to the list.
Yeah, I've added to the list. But I've had like 6 people. They're like, "Oh, you like watching shows? Have you seen Wednesday?" I'm like, "No." Like I watched the first episode and then I binged the entire
Really?
rest. I'm like, "Geez." So, yeah, I'm gonna have to sit down and just watch that.
Okay.
Dahmer.
No.
I didn't figure you would watch that.
No. I have thoughts. I my morbid curiosity got the best of me because I look. I'm all right. This is going to be a controversial opinion. Okay.
You like eating people.
I'm not huge on true crime.
No,
Like,
really.
I'm huge on, like, if it's a really riveting, interesting story, I'm in. But I have zero desire to watch a show about Ted Bundy, about John Wayne Gacy, about Jeffrey Dahmer, Like for me, those are I don't want to see that. Like that shit really happened. You know, if there's I'm more like if somebody like, you know, robbed a Brinks truck and then fled to Europe for 30 years and got captured. That type of true crime I like. But when it involves serial killers, like
murder, not your cup of tea.
But my morbid curiosity to get the best of me, because I do know how Jeffrey Dahmer really did pass away, and I'm like, well, they're not really going to show that, are they? And they didn't. They didn't. And I was like, okay.
But
no.
Evan Peters as Jeffrey Dahmer is just terrifying.
Yeah, I just, you know what frustrated me about that, Jason, was like all the memes on Facebook. Like it was like, when this happens,
I had Five Guys for dinner.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that really happened. And I'm like, no. I mean, you and I, we're old enough to remember when that actually happened.
Yeah.
Like that was massive news. Like that was on the cover of fucking People magazine everywhere. Like that was, and I was still in Canada at the time, and that was national. It was worldwide.
It was worldwide. Yeah.
So,
but I'll end it on a somewhat positive one, and it's one that you recommended that I really enjoyed, which is Emily the Criminal.
Emily the Criminal.
If you have not seen that, what a great one.
Seek that one out.
Aubrey Plaza.
That was one. I'm going to give credit to the F This Movie podcast. I was listening to, I want to say, I can't remember what episode it was, but they were talking about movies that had come out this year. And JB, one of the frequent collaborators on F This Movie, was just going on and on about this movie. And at the time, I hadn't even heard of it.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, no, you have to watch. This is terrific. And so I went into it with no idea what it was about.
Right.
Because to their credit, they weren't really talking about the plot of the movie. And I was just like, oh, this is fascinating.
It really was.
And it's the layers of
and it was a great story. It was well acted. I think it was Theo Rossi was her boyfriend / mentor, and he did a great job.
Yeah, he was. I mean, it was.
And the ending of it, I was like, woof. They had so many directions they could have gone with that.
Yeah.
And I did not see that happening.
I won't
say anything about
We'll
it.
keep the spoiler free.
Yeah.
When we do our end of the year, you know, the surprises, the disappointments, and I'm sure that's going to make our list.
Yeah.
As of right now, I can tell you, the 10 favorite movies of the year right now, that's probably going to make my list.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And we're being super vague about what it's about.
Yeah,
because go into it cold.
Go into it. Yeah, exactly. Just turn it on, let it go, and follow it where it takes you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right, cool. Well, that's we're going to end this episode with our today is December 5th. December 5th. All right. So we are 11 days away from Avatar: The Way of Water.
Yep.
Here's what I can tell you. Everyone's asking me, are you excited for this movie because you hate CGI bullshit? No, I don't hate CGI bullshit. Not when James Cameron, because I'm going to see something I've never seen before. The local theater here, the Regal, their IMAX, I looked into the fine print, will be the high frame rate. So,
oh, really?
So this movie will be projected not only in 3D, but it will be at 48 frames per second. And when you watch it like that, there is going to be a level of resolution that we're not
fluid.
Yeah, that we're not used to seeing. So, and the movie, it's not just animated. Like the actors are there. It's all motion capture. So it's not like we're just seeing I'm trying to defend CGI all of a sudden when I'm so anti-CGI. But my gut tells me to never bet against James Cameron. So my prediction for its box office, we're 13 years removed from the original. There's a whole generation that never saw the original Avatar in IMAX 3D the way it's meant to be seen. So my box office prediction for right now, 180 opening weekend. And that's tough. That's tough because it's 3 hours and 10 minutes long. So you're actually losing a screening every day that it's.
So I'm curious to see, because when we last looked at it, they were opening on Thursday night.
Yeah.
I would like to see a Tuesday screening. If they added a Tuesday, I would say, 180. I think it's going to be closer to 120.
Okay, that's interesting.
I think people are going to look at the ticket prices for IMAX and 3D and go, I'm not paying $24 for this.
there are a lot of people out there that are hungry for something other than Marvel, DC, Star Wars.
Yeah.
All right, because James Cameron, to his credit, I mean, I know, there's the movies are loosely based, they're heavily inspired by other stories, but he's created one hell of a world.
Yeah,
and apparently we're going to be introduced to a new world in this one. So
I wish it the best. I will definitely be there supporting the.
I'm
massive
going.
Ticket.
It'll probably be the last movie I see this year.
Yeah.
So I'm
probably
excited.
the first 3D movie I've seen in 5 years, maybe.
Yeah. Last 3D movie I saw was because I didn't back then. They didn't give you an option, so it would have been 2016 Rogue One. I saw that in 3D because I wanted to see it in IMAX, and they didn't have 2D showings.
Oh yeah, that's what it is with this one. Like I want to see it in IMAX, but it's only 3D.
Well, see, I'm definitely seeing it in 3D IMAX.
Yeah,
and I'm excited. And of course, everybody listening, you can expect a full review of that movie.
Yeah, we got you covered.
The weekend it comes out. So, just want to remind you one more time that if you want to come on board and become a supporter of the show, you can do that by going to patreon.com/howisThisMovie. There's a link in this episode's show notes. As soon as we're done wrapping up this conversation, Jason and I are going to record episode 3 of our new miniseries, 101 movies from the 1990s that you need to check out. We're going to be recording numbers 82 through 72 on this one. And it's been a lot of fun. And that is going to be the first of many miniseries that we're going to be having on the Patreon. So expect 101 from the 80s. And, I was even kicking around 101 from the 2000s. Because there is some good ones in that one.
It gets rougher.
It does. It gets murky.
Yeah.
It gets very murky.
There's a lot of opinion in that.
So if you could, please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you use. If you want to reach out to me, I am on Twitter for as long as it lasts, at Dana Buckler Show. I'm also on Twitter at Dana Buckler. I'm on Instagram at The Dana Buckler Show, and I'm also on Instagram at The Dana Buckler. You can email me, thedanabucklershow@gmail.com. If you have a question for Jason, please send it to that email, and I will forward to him. Jason, thank you as always, buddy.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it.
All right, then.